Hey, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to Tinfoil Hat with Sam Tripoli. Today's episode is brought to you by the podcast Espionage. Code names, deception, gadgets. It might seem like something out of the movies, but these are just some of the essential components of being a spy. Most spies don't stand out like James Bond or Ethan Hunt. They are ordinary, forgettable people, which makes them all the more dangerous. So what does it really take to be a spy? Every week, the Parcast Network original show Espionage explores the high-stakes world and analyzes the missions behind the world's most incredible spies and what they brought their covert operations into the public eye. Find out the real-world spy tactics required to impersonate, exploit, and infiltrate the most confidential places in the world. You'll be shocked by the episode on Larry Chin, one of the CIA's top Chinese linguistics, who was the Chinese top spy for more than 30 years. Search for and subscribe to Espionage wherever you listen to podcasts. Again, search Espionage or visit parcast.com/espionage to listen now. And please enjoy this podcast.
Tinfoil hat. Oh, what the fuck are you guys even talking about?
Global controls will have to be imposed, and a world governing body will be created to enforce them.
Welcome to Tinfoil Hat. We go deep, homeboy. Aaron, open your mind. Drink from the fountain of knowledge. There's lizard people everywhere. That's some interdimensional shit. Wake up, Aaron.
This is only the beginning.
Dude, you just blew my mind.
Yeah. Here we go. We got some. Oh, there we go. Yeah. Welcome to Tinfoil Hat. We finally figured out how to get the video in the video, so I hope you enjoyed that opening. We love that, and we appreciate it from everyone from Sukum Films. They're nice enough to do that for me. As always, my partner in crime, XG in the place to be.
What's up, my
How
dude?
are you, dude?
Good. Feeling
It's
good.
got a wonderful week of chaos coming out. I want to give it up for our sponsors real quick. Give it up for BetDSI. BetDSI for all your bet needs. Go to BetDSI. Use the promo code HAT100 and use that to just make bets on all these. It's a wonderful time to do sports. Start betting now because it's about to get to just baseball. But we have UFC. We have NBA playoffs, basketball. Boxing is killing it. The draft's coming up, and this should be out on that day. No, this will actually be out on Wednesday, so it already came out before the draft. But get that. Use the promo code HAT100, and they will double your deposit up to $500. Hook it up and help it out. You guys are the best. I appreciate you guys listening to our sponsors. Coming up on Tuesday, it is our good friends at Absolute Extract. ABX.org presents Comedy Chaos live at the Comedy Store. The lineup is coming together. I will be announcing it this Tuesday, so by the time this is out, you'll get it. It is going to be a killer lineup, like always. It's the best show at the Comedy Store. Come and support. Go to abx.org. Check out our friends. They have everything. They got the vape pens. They got the flour. They got the balms. They got good-looking women. By the way, weed chicks are way better than the weed chicks back in the day. The other ones, they look crunchy, granola. These chicks all look like futuristic strippers, and we love them. So go to our good friends at abx.org. Help support those who help support the show. The Patreon is crushing right now. Go check it out. We got Conspiracies Now. It's a free flow show. If you want us to do more topical stuff, that is what the Patreon's for. It's called Conspiracies Now, and people are loving it. It's the number one worst public access show you'll ever see in your life, but it's fun. And it's a really, really good show, and I'm pretty proud of it. We record it every Wednesday at 9 p.m. at the Comedy Store. If you're in LA, you want to come hang out, come watch it. Unfortunately, it won't be this Wednesday because I'm filming something for the CW. I'm very excited about that. So as this comes out, I will be in Montauk, New York, and so you can go check that out. What else we got? T-shirts. Go check out. You want to support the show? Buy a T-shirt. Go to tinfoilhat-t-shirts.com, and you could grab that. And all the dates, I mean, we got everything on it. New shirts are going up all the time. It's all fan art. Fans, they send us in. We pick the ones we like, and we turn them into shirts so that you guys can have it. That's Samzilla. We got Ronin shirts. We got a lot of samurai stuff and more to come. And then everybody in New York, the tinfoil hat is coming to Skankfest. I believe that's the second week in June. Go to Skankfest.
21st to the 23rd.
Third week.
There
Myself,
we
XG, Tim Dillon, we are live, and we are doing that show, and we are super duper excited about it. So we're going to put that all together, and it's going to be a great show. We're going to be in a bigger room. Last time we packed it out. The show's even bigger, so we're going to give them a bigger room. So go and check that out. Tim Dillon is always on fire. Did we hit everything?
Yep.
We
We're good
did
to go.
everything. My God, I'm
Killing
getting good
it.
at this. How long was that, Aaron? 4:45. That's amazing. You guys I am great. You are lucky. As you know, this show, we do a lot of geopolitics, and we've been doing a lot. I'm kind of over it. I mean, we know what's going on. We know the game being played. A lot of people want me to do something on Julian Assange. I don't think anyone knows what's going on. I don't know if people think Trump's in on it. They're not on it. I've heard stuff that Chelsea Manning's father is a spy for the British Navy, and he's Five Eyes. And this has all been a long setup. So I'm holding off before we do a show on it because I want to know what's going on. I want to see when the second shoe drops. But I love getting into the occult. I love studying the stuff that maybe physics can't explain. Right? Because everyone thinks there's these rules of physics, and everything's got to be within this physics. It's very funny because most likely Freemasons made the rules of physics. We don't hate all Freemasons here, okay? Just like any group, there's some bad apples. But the rules of physics were made by Freemasons to keep you to play within this group. It's like the rules of boxing. Well, I can punch, but what about MMA? I can't do any of that. Well, they don't want you doing that. They don't want you looking at it. There's things that the laws of physics cannot explain. And here to talk about, he is the producer of the Third Eye Spies. He's director, editor, producer. He's a one-man band. Please welcome Lance Mungia.
Hey, Sam. How are you?
Did I get it?
Yes, you got it right.
Thank you, Lance. Thank you,
You got
so
it
much
perfectly, man.
for coming on. First of all, I got to be honest with you. Your movie blew me away.
Sweet.
Not just from just the story, but the production value was great. Usually when I gotta watch somebody's movies, I'm like, oh, it's like going to see your buddy's band in LA. You're like, oh, this is not gonna be good. And then one time you go and they blow you away, you're like, wow. That guy could do something real for it, man. So we just want to run a trailer. Your movie's called Third Eye Spies, and we just want to run it real quick and let's see if XG can do this. And stop. Oh, here it is.
If you had an ability to be able to remotely perceive stuff any place in the world, that could be an extraordinary intelligence.
Well, you people getting audio are blessed.
We found that many individuals are able to accurately describe what's going on in distant locations.
Are you saying that the work you've been doing is classified?
It was a research facility. That was
It's a
all
great
that we were
film.
gonna tell them.
There's a lot of cool stuff going on right now.
You have to use your
They can't see.
Russians
And we're going to have to listen to it because we don't know how to stop it either.
There's dancing bears.
They're just close.
There's beautiful women.
Psychic
Dude,
spy.
the CIA know we're doing this.
Almost a psychic
CIA
arm
is
was
just
raised
covering
here.
it up.
Is there any real application?
They're blocking the
All right,
signal, man.
There we go. There we go. When in doubt,
That's all right. We'll
unplug
put a
it,
link,
okay?
man. Just put a link.
We'll put a link in
Put
there.
a link to the trailer, and you
That-
can see the dancing bears in Russia for yourself.
XG is as good at that as he is using ways to get directions back to the hotel. It's okay, XG.
Stop working. Look at this
XG,
computer.
you crushed on the last show. You're loud.
It's my psychic ability, man. It's
Yes.
like interfering with the signal.
Third Eye Spies. It's basically along the lines of the Men Who Stare at Goats almost. It is the The remote viewing.
Right. It's about remote viewing. I mean, I think Men Who Stare at Goats is kind of the satirical notion of this, but it's actually not Men Who Stare at Goats. It's actually the real 20-year government program where basically every U.S. intelligence agency used psychic abilities to spy on the Soviet Union very, very successfully for about 20 years. Before it was publicly outed, and then it probably went further underground.
So you're saying successfully?
Oh, absolutely successfully. Yeah.
Let's start from the beginning. How did you get into this?
Well, when I was a kid, I had a dog-eared version of Reader's Digest, and somebody that was in the U.S. Army remote viewing program leaked this out like long before it had come out, and I read this article and I loved it. And so I always kind of tried to follow, this whole idea that the U.S. Army was using psychics as spies. I thought it was just cool, like scanners or, something, And years later, just by coincidence, a man by the name of Russell Targ, who was one of the founders of the original remote viewing program that happened at Stanford Research Institute, is where the first research was done on this. He happened to see my first movie on YouTube. The movie is called Six String Samurai. It's kind of a cult movie.
Oh, what do you mean?
Oh, yeah, I directed it.
You directed Six String Samurai?
Fuck yeah, man. That's
Holy
my movie,
shit, dude.
Yeah, totally.
That's amazing. I
yeah,
love
yeah.
that movie.
Oh, right on. There you go.
I'm blown away.
Yeah.
Dude, that movie is excellent. I'm all about the samurai, dude. That's great, man. Wow.
Yeah, that's where the glasses came from, man. I wear these glasses, and it's like, that's the whole Six String Samurai connection.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's a great movie, man. Thanks for making that movie.
Oh, you're welcome.
So he saw that awesome movie.
Yeah. He saw the movie, and through a mutual friend, he knew that I had a YouTube channel and a public access show where I was interviewing people who were interested in consciousness and, psychic stuff. And so he basically reached out to me and he said, I have a script and I'd love you to read it and maybe make this movie. And luckily, I knew who he was. I already knew who Russell Targ was. He's a very well-known physicist and very well respected in the field of parapsychology. So even though I read his script, I wasn't thrilled about the narrative script. I said, I'm glad to give you notes on it and everything. It's not really something I want to make. I said, but I think the real story here is the U.S. government's 20-year investment in psychic abilities. I said, can't we talk about that? I said, that's a freaking movie, man. That's like movie. Cool. And he goes, well, that's a very interesting idea. He says, why don't I fly out to L.A. and let's talk about it. So he literally flew from San Francisco to L.A. and he literally showed up at my front door with a briefcase full of documents. And we sat down at my, living room table, and he just starts taking out all of these like drawings of like Soviet weapons factories and submarines and stuff where basically somebody sitting in a room somewhere had very, very meticulously drawn schematics of something going on thousands of miles away with absolutely no input other than their own imagination, and gotten it completely correct.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So we're looking at this and I'm going, all right, is the CIA gonna, let us do this? Are they gonna come after me if I do this movie? But it actually was so real and so much information. And he was there for 3 days. Like I remember the first night I went to bed and I thought to myself, is this guy like schizophrenic or something? I mean, I know he's famous, but it's like, it's so compelling, and then that made me realize, we need to get everybody involved that had done this on record, because it's so unbelievable that even me knowing enough about this, you need the credibility of all of the different people with PhDs after their names that were actually involved. So that's what I told Russell. I mean, the next day I said, look, I'm really into this and I'd love to do the film, but if we do this, we have to get everybody on record, everybody that we can find and basically preserve that testimony, because some of these people were getting older.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and it's like it's like a tree falling in the forest. If nobody hears it, doesn't make a sound.
Right.
It's like it's just too unbelievable unless you see the first-hand
nobody
testimony.
tells the story. Yeah. Did it really happen?
Right. So we basically set off to contact a lot of these people, and this was only able to be done now because of Russell's efforts getting the program declassified. Because when he first started trying to get it declassified after he left the program in the 80s, it was all marked automatic do not downgrade, which is the CIA's most classified version of stuff, meaning it doesn't automatically ever get declassified. So he had to petition, Congress people and allies in the program, and after the closure of the program in the 90s to actually get all of that stuff done.
Do you think the program has been closed? I mean, if this is so effective, and I don't want to jump the gun, but there's this notion that they would stop. Hey, we stopped doing it. It's all done. No more. We learned our lessons. Bad us. We dropped it. It's like, if it's effective.
Well, yeah, they're still doing it.
Okay. So let's get into this. I didn't mean to throw us off guard.
No, it's fine. But I just want to say, if you had a tool that is so effective, and I've heard people say like, maybe it was just propaganda. Maybe it never worked. And I actually had that thought. I thought maybe I'm like being suckered here, and I don't want to be, I don't want to be manipulated into doing something that's not real. And even if I had found evidence that went against what I was doing, I still would have presented that evidence. But when I started to see contemporary people doing this in front of me, in ways that I couldn't make sense of as to how it worked, I went, okay, wait a minute. Somebody's not getting something here. Like, we're not getting the full story about this. And if it works now, then it worked then. And if these are just people that I'm around now, what about if I had all the resources of the U.S. government and I could go find the most badass people that ever did any of this stuff and put them in a room and then have satellites to back up what it is that they find? And I realized, they're still doing it.
They're still doing man.
But it doesn't cost anything. It doesn't cost anything. So it's like the three of us right now could like get out a piece of paper and like concentrate on something hidden over there.
Yeah.
And, like, write it down. There's no like big computers needed or any of that. So you can hide all that stuff. It's almost like as if they were just to take like the Blackwaterization of it. They probably left the official government reporting behind, and then they just went to like private contractors.
And then there's the Black Ops funding and all that stuff, and it's why like a government buys a hammer for like $3,000.
Right. It's in the Department of the Navy's trash removal fund.
Yeah, right.
I mean, seriously.
So we get into it's about remote viewing. What is remote viewing?
Remote viewing is the act of using only the power of your own mind to see anywhere outside of time and space, to see objects, people, places, things, events that are otherwise completely hidden. And this is an ability that works whether you're looking in the past. To a certain extent, you can look into the future. You certainly can look at the now, of today. And what they found was that this was actually not an uncommon ability. This is an ability that is like a bell curve of creativity. I mean, everybody has some ability to a certain extent. Some people may be virtuosos at it. Maybe other people can just carry a tune.
Right.
But it's sort of just our own intuition, and applying that intuition to see things that are hidden and distant. That's basically remote viewing.
I talk about, I have a cousin who could, and this isn't remote viewing, but along the lines of psychic, you could take some, put in his hand, he could tell you the complete history of it, where it's been, what happened, all that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's psychics all over LA. I mean, we can go to a psychic right now and probably get a pretty cool reading, but it's not a science of an ability. It's an intuitive ability. What remote viewing did was basically just take this and put it into a structure. So that there are certain things that you do and ways that you report out the information, and where it becomes much more sort of verifiable. And and believe it or not, they found that the people who were the best at doing this were people who were just ordinary people who had never done it before. If you were to go to Madame Zola, and with the crystal ball and say, here, be a remote viewer, they may not be a very good remote viewer because they have their own way of sort of doing their own psychic work and whatever. They found that the people who could do this were people who maybe like the successful scientists from another laboratory, people who were successful in other fields, people who were kind of outgoing and had a very grounded, balanced perspective on life, not the crazy far out, psychic,
not the crazy cat lady,
right,
or the lady sitting outside the psychic reading that is the only business in Los Angeles that never shuts down.
Right.
I've seen Starbucks, Sizzlers, but somehow this psychic lady who sits outside what looks like a third world dictator mansion on Melrose never shuts down.
Then she's
ever been
probably
inside
pretty
one?
good.
What?
Have you been inside one?
They don't like when men walk in. Have you
No?
ever noticed
I've
that?
never
Go
even-
with your
Well, it
girlfriend.
depends
or
on
shoot.
who you're going to. Like if you go to the gypsies, like there's a lot of like the gypsies really do have like some sort of thing where they do this stuff. But it's a very sort of it's a complicated thing. But what you don't want to do is you don't want to go to somebody who you walk in and they may have some real ability maybe, but then they're going to look at your palm and go, oh, "You're cursed."
Yeah.
If only you'd buy my candle for $600,
Yeah.
I can fix it. I've actually had that happen to me once, and it's like, I'll just deal with it. It's like it's something that you don't necessarily need to have outside of yourself,
Right.
and that's the thing I think that is the biggest secret. They like is that if the U.S. government knew that then you're just as powerful as they are, right?
Right.
Right. So it's like, what happens if like everybody knows this? You can go back in time. You talk about the Freemasons and other hidden societies, and even some churches today, perhaps, and secret groups and things like that. All of these people knew this stuff. All of them, but they keep the information hidden. The Mayan, priest dude on top of the temple holding the beating heart or whatever, he knew a lot of this stuff, but he wasn't telling the people down at the bottom of the pyramid because then he'd lose his power, right?
Right.
So I think a lot of it is about that.
You have to. It's almost when you are. I hope this makes sense. When baby elephants are small, they tie a rope to its leg, and it can't get out. So when it grows older, they tie the rope around its leg, and even though it's powerful, it thinks,
that's it.
I can't go.
Dude.
So they have to convince you need them in order to do this stuff, and without them, you're powerless or you're garbage, when in reality, you are the one. It's like again, Dumbo's magic feather.
Yes.
You always had the power, you just put it into some symbolism right there.
Well, when this all got started, it was the standard. I don't know if you ever saw Ghostbusters and, like the little card tricks they do at the beginning of Ghostbusters where Bill Murray's like shocking the guy and he's like, okay, guess what's on the card, right? Okay, so that's literally taken from like Stanford Research Institute back in the 70s. That's what they were doing. They weren't shocking people, but they were like
They were probably shocking.
Maybe they were. They didn't talk about it very much.
If you listen to what happened to the Unabomber, they were shocking people.
Maybe over in the MK Ultra area.
Oh, okay,
possibly,
different department.
Different department.
Wrong floor. Psychic viewings upstairs.
Shocking's in the basement. Yeah. LSD up at the top.
Yeah. Different department.
Okay, so they were literally just doing these card tricks, and they had one guy who was an actual real claimed to be the greatest psychic in the world. His name was Ingo Swann. And,
you got to be with that name. You can't work at
you
Burger
got it. I don't know
King
if he
with
made that
Ingo
up or it was
Swann.
his real name, but I mean, it's a cool name, right?
Yeah, Ingo Swann.
And Ingo said, you're having me do these stupid card tricks. If you want to know what's in the envelope, just pick up the fucking envelope and read it. I can see anywhere on the planet. Give me something better to look at.
Yeah.
And so to humor this guy, they started sending an assistant out for coffee at lunch or something, and they'd say, all right, well, you tell us where he is. And the guy would write down details of where the assistant had gone that were accurate. And so they said, well, gee, we're onto something here. And then over a period of months, they figured out they could use coordinates. And they could use latitude and longitude. And without any other information, knowing what's going on, they could give this guy just, 48 degrees this and 50 degrees that. And then he would tell you what was at that location anywhere on the planet.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, anywhere on the planet. So when this got out, the CIA was secretly monitoring their progress, right?
Of course.
and somebody from CIA shows up and says, yeah, we've been looking for you guys, and apparently the Soviet Union at the time was spending untold millions at like 70 some different laboratories all around the Soviet Union, not just studying this stuff, but the intelligence reports they were getting were saying they were using it operationally. So this was scaring the CIA, and they didn't know. They thought maybe it was all just propaganda. So they told Stanford Research Institute, where these two scientists, Russell Targ, who's my producer, and Hal Puthoff, who was his partner, if you can prove this works, we'll fund you.
Wow.
He says, but we don't think it does work. We think it's bullshit. So if this is just BS, well, then whatever. But we actually want you to disprove it, is what we want. And of course, they basically gave a random set of coordinates to SRI, and SRI took those coordinates to two different psychics. One was Ingo Swann. The other man was by the name of Pat Price. Pat Price was a police commissioner in Burbank, in the city. Actually, we're in Burbank, and he had just retired, and he had read some of the public study stuff that had been done at SRI, and he wanted to be involved. So they said, oh, well, okay, send him the coordinates and just see what he comes back with, right? So they sent him the coordinates independently. They had Ingo look at the coordinates. They both come back with descriptions of underground bases, of missile silos, military barracks, large doors, and all this kind of stuff. And the scientists look at this. They have no idea if it's accurate. We don't know. They just send it off back to CIA, and the guy at CIA looks at it and goes, "This is bogus. This is totally not what I told them to look at. I told them to look at my buddy's cabin in the woods. That's it. And then so Kit, this is the guy in the movie, calls Russell and says, "What's the deal? With this? This is not what I gave you." And then Russell says, "Well, that's odd because both of our guys were independently coming up with very similar results." So Kit decides to take a family vacation for the weekend out to the woods of Virginia, where these coordinates
were.
Mm-hmm. And as he's driving down the road, he's looking out and he's seeing this giant radar dish out in the distance, and it sounds like something that had been described. And so he goes, "Gee, I wonder what that is." So he looks it up, and he finds out it's one of the most top secret sites that the NSA has. It's a listening post to spy on Russian satellites. And literally for a 100-mile radius in that whole area, you can't even have like a walkie-talkie. It's so secret.
Really?
Yeah. It's a radio-free zone. It's called Sugar Grove. It's retired now, but just recently. And
so they say.
Yeah, exactly. And so he sends this stuff out to NSA and says, "Is there any validity to any of this stuff?" And then the next thing you know, CIA, FBI, NSA, all of these guys are showing up at this dude's office. Like, what the hell are you doing sending psychics in California to spy on the NSA? because they didn't just get it right. They got it really right.
Yeah.
And especially Pat Price actually was able to give the names of top secret special access projects going on at that site.
Oh my God.
Yeah. He listed the name of the facility. He listed specific names of programs going on that were ongoing, and I checked into that to make sure.
Oh man, they must have flipped out.
Oh, they did. We in our film we interviewed Ken Kress, who was an undercover CIA operative who was the physicist that was in charge of running the program at the inception. And he said once that information got back into NSA, that this little experiment, CIA, that this little experiment had kind of blown up, it scared everybody. I mean, it all of a sudden everybody hit pause and went, wait a minute. Okay, so if you can see documents, then that means that none of our stuff is safe.
Yeah.
We're missing something here big time. And so they started funding Stanford Research Institute. And then at the same time, they also had Stanford Research Institute start training other people in government, sometimes without their knowledge. Like people would just show up and be like, I just want to check out what you guys are doing. And then you find out later they're going back to CIA and doing it. So this went on for 20 years. They worked for every single agency of the U.S. intelligence services, and they got very good operational results. The Army program was based out of Fort Meade, Maryland. They, for a number of years, did work out of there, and I talked to in the movie, Joe McMoneagle's the most sort of famous remote viewer for the U.S. Army. He was given the Legion of Merit Award, which is the highest honor you can get as a non-combatant in the intelligence services.
Really?
Yeah, for his remote viewing. So you're going to tell me it didn't work. How come the dude got the Legion of Merit Award? Like, what was he like playing tiddlywinks with the Russians? Joe McMoneagle. Joe McMoneagle. Yeah, it's Chief Warrant Officer Joe McMoneagle. And he said that they got about, and actually through the other research that I did as well, I learned that they got about 80% of their cases had positive evidence for remote viewing, meaning they got some things right, but 20% of their cases they solved completely. You know, so now the other thing you got to keep in mind is that these cases were cold cases. They were only given things in the remote viewing unit in the Army when nobody else could solve them. You know, like when they didn't know, when they just had no idea what was going on. So they would give, and they completely solved 20% of those cases and got positive evidence for over 80%. So that's like dramatic evidence of something.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
You know, that's of something. I mean, and so when I started this film, I was really, really compelled, not just by the spy versus spy, you know, conspiracy stuff, which is cool, right? But I was compelled by what this means to us, like as human beings, and into science in particular, because it means that we're missing something really big.
That there's something bigger going on.
Right. And it's the same stuff that has been talked about for years. I mean, for centuries. I mean, all of the mystics and the prophets and stuff talk about this kind of stuff, and we always discount it as like sort of myth.
We all have that. We think of somebody, all of a sudden they call us. You know,
right?
There's just something, because we were talking kind of before about how like a lot of stuff in conspiracies get poo-pooed because it doesn't fit into the rules of physics or the laws of physics. And you were like, you said something really smart, and basically like, you know, just think of how the rules have changed over time. It's like if I use 1850 scientific laws, how do I explain a microwave?
Right. There was a physicist, I forget his name, in the early 20th century that said, we don't need to study physics anymore. We know everything there is to know about physics. We don't need to study it. You know, and now, like 100 years later, we're realizing that what we know is just the tiniest little bit, you know, compared to what's actually out there. And actually, as time goes on, and we talk about stuff like psychic abilities, it's the evidence is mounting more and more, even in mainstream circles, through things like quantum physics, quantum entanglement. You know, that there is something there that we don't understand. You know, but the problem has been that we're looking at a very linear way of science. We're looking at a very particular dogmatic way of doing things. 1 + 1 always must equal 2.
Right.
You know, and in quantum mechanics, just like with your own consciousness, it doesn't work that way. We don't think linearly. You know, we don't operate on ones and zeros. So you can't go into a laboratory and replicate that result exactly the same every time, because every single point of consciousness, me, you, him, everybody, is different. You know, so we're all going to have slightly different filters and look at things a different way and bring our own BS onto the table, and so it's very hard to create a scientific theory around consciousness, because there's no material thing that you can point to. It's not like I have a beam coming out of my head, you know, like in your poster, you know, there that literally you can like read and go and see. The reason that the Soviets took this stuff so seriously, and the reason that they did so well with it over a long period of time, was because they were materialists. They believed that there had to be a material explanation for psychic abilities, because everything had a material explanation, because they're communist, you know, and Lenin and Stalin and all these guys, they really believed that everything had a true material explanation, even consciousness. So what would happen over time is these scientists in the Soviet Union would disprove that. Like they would send somebody into a submarine and go down at the very furthest depths of the ocean. They'd be like, all right, if it's a signal that's coming off of somebody's brain, then the water's going to dampen it and we're going to get a different result. And there would be no different result. They even sent...
Wow.
Yeah.
They would do that? They would send somebody to a submarine to the bottom of the ocean?
That's a real experiment that was done.
Wow.
Yeah, in the Soviet Union, yeah.
Dude.
Yeah.
Looks like they did it better.
Well, yeah. They actually... The Soviets and the U.S. had different ways of looking at the phenomenon. The Soviets wanted outbound psi-ability. They wanted to cause things. Like I'm gonna think about Sam Tripoli, and I'm gonna get him to have me on his show. I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna plant that thought. Like you know, like that's what they were working on. Or they would try to like mess up electronics, or try to like create some outcome in the world, like PK, like you know, psychokinesis, like poltergeist shit. Right. You know, but the Americans were much more concerned about inbound information. So they were concerned with gathering intelligence and preventing other people from seeing what they were doing. So that was their focus. And the Americans claim to have been very successful in that, while the Soviets, the whole outbound thing, because that was more of their focus, they didn't do quite as well with that. But again, it depends on who you talk to.
Yeah,
I mean, it depends on who you talk to, because you can't really trust anything when it comes to this
trust
stuff.
any of the information out there.
You have to discern for yourself. I'll tell you, I spent the first several months of making this film wondering, okay, is this for real? Is this for real? I mean, and keeping thinking about it. But it wasn't until I actually saw it for myself that then I went, all right. And it was actually in the film. I went to the International Remote Viewing Association conference.
There's a conference. Where's the conference?
Let's go, man. It's in Vegas.
When is it?
It's
in
in Vegas.
Of course it's in Vegas.
Yeah, it's in Vegas. And there's actually one in June coming up called App Fest. I'll plug that.
What day is that?
It's like late June, but it's
App Fest.
App Fest.
APP or
APP. And that is actually the Applied Precognition Project.
Dude, I am there.
Oh yeah, they do gambling. Oh, let's go, man. I'm gonna be there. Let's go.
Do it.
Yeah, let's go.
I will do that. I would love that.
Right on. Yeah, and they do gambling experiments and in Vegas. They actually, that's how this one physicist that runs that program, his name is Marty Rosenblatt, and he's a physicist, used to be at SRI, and they get their best groups get like 75-80% hit rates in over/under sports betting.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. They when they should be getting 25% by chance.
I'm gonna go meet some people.
Yeah.
This is America.
Yeah.
How you gonna lose?
Yeah. Gematria,
whatever that was. Yeah.
Right. So when I saw the contemporary uses of this, and saw the results like firsthand for myself, then I went, all right, so this is not propaganda. There's something to this. You can't get that many people to pull the wool over somebody's eyes. And for sure, U.S. intelligence took this stuff very, very seriously. And actually a lot of their effort was geared towards making sure that the Russians can't do it to them. And for example, a remote viewer from the Army actually told me this. You know how there's this rule that politicians can't receive gifts? Like if I was to give you, here's a cell phone, Sam. Take this, comrade.
Yeah.
You take a cell phone. It'd be good for you.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. Now you're carrying around that phone, and that becomes like a psychic beacon. Because it's been marked by like a Soviet spy. So that like if you're in some secret bunker somewhere doing something, it becomes a psychic listening device.
Oh, it's the old Alexa.
Right. It is. It's the psychic Alexa. It's the non-tech Alexa, and that was actually back in the 80s. They implemented a policy where it was like politicians and high-ranking people in the military could not accept any gifts. If you get a gift, it goes into a storage room, and it sits there until you're out of office.
Shut up.
Yeah.
And that's why?
Well, that's what I was told. Yeah, by somebody who was a remote viewer.
Holy I would love to know. Did you ever get to interview any Russians on that end?
I did.
Did they have any interesting stories?
The Russian guy that I interviewed, and he did not make the film. He'll be on my YouTube page soon. It's youtube.com Waking Universe TV. That's my YouTube page. And it's an interview with a Ukrainian scientist who has spent a lot of years studying this phenomenon of remote viewing and psychic and stuff in general. And what he told me is that he has to publish under an assumed name now because it's become so cracked down on in the former Soviet Union, all over the Ukraine, Russia, those places. It's very much frowned upon now to even study this kind of phenomenon.
Oh, really?
They even banned books, he said, in the Ukraine where about psychic ability and stuff like that. They don't want people dabbling in this, and so. So yeah, he publishes under an assumed name. But to be fair, and non-conspiracy about it, look, it's an embarrassing field for scientists who have PhDs after their name. I've seen it again and again and again when I've interviewed these guys. They know there's something to this. They know it's real. I went to Cambridge and interviewed a Nobel laureate. Brian Josephson is in the film, and he told me that even though he's won a Nobel Prize for quantum physics, because he believes there's validity to psi-ability, and because he spent years experimenting and studying with that, it's very hard for him to get funding, even though he's a Nobel Prize winner.
For that subject.
For anything. He's been blackballed.
If he wants to find out why Weebles wobble but they don't fall down.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Can't
it's
get
like
that
he says he's actually spoken to people he says it in the film. He says, I've spoken to people who've said, we'll work with this other guy as long as you don't work with Josephson. Because the stigma of it, it's just like, oh, that's too crazy or whatever. It's like, but again, times are changing.
Too crazy scares people.
Yes.
I see it in entertainment as well. When you're surrounded by business people, and science is business.
Yes.
Like if you go, hey, here are the results of this, I want to know who funded it. Because there's a good chance they had something to do with the results, or at least the interpretation of the results.
Dude, I went to a local college that has an agricultural program, and I'm walking in the door, and I went there to go buy some like good organic produce. I was like, I'm gonna get some good bell peppers and stuff like that. And I walked in, and I walked right up to the kid at the counter, and I said, hey, where's your organic section? I want to get something. And he goes, yeah, we don't have an organic section, sorry. And it's like, okay, but it's all locally grown here on campus. Oh, okay. Guess who's funding their whole program?
Monsanto.
Yeah, Monsanto, DuPont, Kellogg, like all of these companies that make pesticides. So do you think they're going to teach their students about how not to use pesticides?
Of course.
No, hell no. And it's the
course.
same thing with any area of medicine, science, whatever. It's always about who is funding the studies, who's funding this, and so it makes dogma, is a very, very powerful word when it comes to science or religion, frankly.
Yeah, money and egos really like hold people back and hold back progress in a lot of fields. Even it's like within comedy and in the industry, it's just like the suits. They're basically gamblers, and they gamble, and like they'll rig the race for that particular person, and they don't like when a wild card comes, because then it like, even if you look at, probably from a directing point of view, if you look at televisions, like they don't want a hit show that's so crazy out there,
right?
Because then it forces them to have to try to duplicate that or work outside this very simple box.
You're seeing that right now on YouTube. You're seeing that on YouTube. You're seeing it's like the tail wags the dog now. It's like, and I think you're going to start to see it in a lot of other areas too. Probably energy, I hope. For sure, because that's the other thing. Is that people working on free energy, people working on revolutionary energy ideas, and also people working in consciousness. These are people who are working in sort of a vacuum. But the problem, or for the status quo now, is that you do have the internet. You do have alternative routes. It's like a leaky dam with all of this stuff just sort of sneaking out.
It's blood in the water, in my opinion, and it's they're trying their hardest to control it, but luckily there's dudes who live in basements who can't get laid, and their whole thing is, how can I just burn everything down? How can I disrupt the system? And that's by creating this new website, creating this VPN, creating something that does not allow these people to control this amazing thing that if they had their way, it would be just their websites for you to check out.
But there's a new way of controlling it. And the new way of controlling it is you throw so much shit in the air you don't. It's not like they try to shut the information down. What they do is they put out like tons and tons and tons of stuff. That like you can't rise above all of that. That's what's happened. I realized this after I spent 5 years studying this stuff and researching it and shooting and going around the world interviewing these people, and the story again and again and again was that they were all frustrated because they can't. Even when they can talk about it, like they can't get their message out in a big enough way because it just doesn't reach that level of critical mass. Our film is so far the best shot that we've had at getting this sort of stuff out because it's just lost in the jet stream of BS. And so many people, you stop them on the street and you say something like, oh, the U.S. government did remote viewing. Again and again, you'll hear people say, oh, yeah, but that didn't work. I saw men with steroid goats.
That's been debunked. That's the big thing.
That's been debunked. I actually went to some studio executives and I talked to them about this. I went to a really good friend of mine who was a award-winning filmmaker, old friend of mine from school. We had like a 4-hour argument about why I should not make the film. Because he said, oh, dude, you're going to ruin your reputation. You got a good reputation. Don't do this. I'm telling you, I've already researched it. I researched I was going to do something on it. And then I found out it was all bogus and lies. And I told him, I said, send me your research. Please, I want to see what you've researched. Show me. He goes, wow, it was like Wikipedia and a few other things. I was like, no, that's not research, man.
Yeah.
No.
It's like people who do Snopes, puts down a Snopes a link, and they're like, look, Snopes was wrong so many times. Right. We don't ever. I keep score. Like conspiracy theorists keep score. Was there any of the incidents that stood out to you, the operations, the missions that stood out more than others? Were just like, you got to be kidding me.
Well, not so much one operation, but one remote viewer, would be Pat Price.
I have a question about it.
Sure.
Heart attack?
Heart attack. See, he's asking the big question. Did he die of a heart attack? See, this guy. I'll tell that story.
All right.
Yeah. So Pat Price and his story is fascinating because here's a guy who literally was a police commissioner, probably blocks away from here. And he was the guy who would be sitting in his office and detectives would come in and say, I've got this really hard case. I can't find this car that's been stolen. You mind helping me out? And he would look at a map and he'd go, yeah, there's a guy that kind of seems like your perp.
What?
And his heart's racing and, why don't you look in this alleyway? And then they'd find the car and they'd find the dude.
What?
Yeah.
Psychic cop.
Psychic cop. Yeah. That's Pat Price. So see this drawing right here.
So that's him with the weird kindergarten teacher sweater up there.
No, that was actually Ingo. That's Ingo. That's Pat all the way over to the left there on the far side. He was an older man.
Go down.
He's actually not even that old. He's in his 50s. But go back to that drawing. This drawing, the one you were just looking at. Yeah, that. Okay, so this was the thing. Like the earlier stuff that I told you about got CIA interested in this, but this right here, this drawing, was the thing that hooked them completely into that it was real. Because see, even after they'd gotten all that great information about the NSA and everything, the CIA is naturally suspicious, right? They're going to be like, somebody's conning us. It's not real, So Ken Kress, this undercover CIA guy, was hiding out at a hotel. And he had given Pat Price these coordinates to look at, and Pat Price draws that crane on the right, that pencil sketch, right? Okay, so Hal Puthoff, the guy actually in the photo down at the bottom of the screen there, that's Hal. Hal Puthoff then goes back to Ken Kress's hotel room. Pat didn't even know he was working for CIA yet or anything. He didn't know specifically anything. They just said, hey, well, look at here, look and see what's here, right? So he goes and brings that drawing. Go back to the drawing for a minute. That drawing right there on the right, the facility that they were looking at, that drawing on the left is the actual facility. That's actually a CIA sketching overlay of a satellite image, because they don't give you the real satellite image because they don't want you to know how much detail they actually have. Yeah. So but that is the actual crane. If you notice, both of them have 8 wheels.
Yeah.
Pat in his transcript said it's incredibly huge. It's so huge that I'm sitting there and I can just see it rolling right over my head because it's so big. If you notice, go look at the photo again.
Yeah.
Right there,
right,
is
a little person.
Yeah, a little person. There's a little person.
Oh, it looks like a thumbtack, but it's actually a person explaining,
right,
trying to give you kind of
scale.
An understanding of scale, how big it is. And he looks like smaller than the Big Pen guy. It's like a tiny, tiny
and that is
dude.
how the guy described it, right? And then he also went on to describe stuff going on underground, and he said underground they were working on these gores, to create spheres, And he nailed it within like 12 inches as to how big the spears actually were in reality.
Oh my God.
And but the thing is, see, the crane was enough to convince CIA that this guy was pretty much for real, but they didn't know about the gores, and they didn't know about the beam weapon that was being built there underground. So they just thought he got that wrong, right? It wasn't until 4 years after the dude died that Aviation Week wrote an article about the gores of Semipalatinsk because the Soviets at that point had opened the facility up because of some treaty or something, and Aviation Week had gotten in there and taken pictures. And then that's how they learned about it. But it was 4 years after the dude died. So unless he was actually a Soviet agent working in Russia and knew about it, nobody in U.S. intelligence knew about it. And that to me was a huge thing in the documentary. I actually, all of the military and the CIA people that we interviewed, I went to them and I said, so did anybody know about this? Because you can't debunk that. Like there's no way for them to debunk that. So that was really a key thing. But this guy was so good that when they finally realized there was something to it, they still weren't totally convinced. So they said, okay, we're going to end the project with Stanford Research Institute. We're going to shut them out. And we're going to basically kidnap Pat Price. They basically compelled him to move to Virginia to a farm where he was constantly monitored 24 hours a day. And they gave him a cover of a like coal mine manager or something. And they basically would have him sit in a room and do remote viewings for CIA under surveillance without any outside involvement.
How did they find him? How did they find this guy that was just a cop? Well, according to Hal Puthoff in the movie, Pat reached out to SRI. Now I'll tell you a little known thing that is not in the film, and that is that both Ingo and Pat were both Scientologists, and they were both in the Church of Scientology, and they may have known each other. I mean, it's possible that Ingo said, "Hey, why don't you, check out this thing, this cool thing I'm doing." And Scientology in general was a very psychic friendly, and Scientology, yeah. And I chose not to even put that into the film because I didn't want the film to be about Scientology. It's like there's such bigger isures here. Go watch Clear or something else if you want to talk about Scientology. I wanted to talk about this other stuff. Viewing.
Yeah, but there was some very interesting connections there through the church, because I think especially at that time when the church was first getting going, they were very friendly to psychic abilities, and actually a large part of their sort of system or whatever kind of thing they're doing was about remote viewing. It was about that. They didn't call it that, but it was like something like that. So I think that both of them probably came out of that world, and that's
sure.
where it got started.
For sure. So they round these guys up and they make them join this department of the CIA, and we've learned that there's different departments in the CIA. Mm-hmm. It's not all spy espionage. They have obviously something like this. There's the people who just work in the office.
Right.
There's the office people who I need your receipts for the ammo. You gotta give me the receipts. I can't give you cash unless I have your receipts. And then there's the assassins.
They probably have an errand too.
You're talking. What you're talking about is stovepiping. They call it stovepiping. Stovepiping is, if you imagine a stovepipe, it's this long narrow tube, right?
Right.
That's the way all of these special access projects work. It's like from the UFO subject to like the psychic stuff to MK Ultra to whatever. The left hand purposely never knows what the right hand is doing. They keep it all separate. But I want to get back. Can I get back to answering his question, right? So the last thing that Pat Price did before he died was he was tasked. The CIA still was skeptical, right? They wanted to know, how the hell does this work? And they had no mechanism to prove it. They just knew it was useful. And so and this is probably circa 1976 or something,
The golden days.
Yeah, so they brought in a guy who had actually broken into the Libyan embassy in New York, a CIA agent, and who knew the basic schematics of this embassy. And they wanted to know where the code room was in this embassy. And this guy had actually had access to that, so he knew, the basics of that. So they just basically showed Pat a picture of the front of the building, and they said, "Here's your target. Where's the code room in it?" So he meticulously described the whole building, the way the stairs work, the carpet, and all this kind of stuff. And he went into the code room. He described that. And then once he was in the code room, he said, and by the way, there's some sort of stuff happening in the Libyan desert that these guys are like dealing with. There's like a terrorist training camp out there, and they're speaking like Chinese and all these other Russian and all these languages, and it's probably out here in this location and whatever. And not only did they look and find that terrorist training camp, which nobody knew about, but they also. The guy that was there in the embassy said, yeah, this guy was like there. I said, I don't know how he knows any of this stuff. So they proved that he knew all of this. And then several days later, he was dead.
Who, Pat?
Heart attack.
Pat, they killed him all, you think?
Yeah. I don't know if they killed him. I don't know. I mean, I have no firsthand evidence, right? But I'll tell you, by that point, the CIA had trained up at least 2 other competent remote viewers, from SRI. So they had their own kind of stuff going. And we think of intelligence as this monolithic thing, right? But actually, with Pat's passing, the official CIA program ended. And this was in the early 70s. I mean, mid 70s, whatever.
Come on.
No. The official.
Yeah.
The official.
Right.
But see, SRI, who was an outside contractor, their whole deal is to go get other contracts. So they started contracts they already had the reputation. So they had contracts with the Army and the Navy and the Air Force and Secret Service. And they were doing tasks for everybody, not just CIA. So this was not a CIA-centric only, kind of a thing. But there's different stories. When Pat died, he actually was on furlough from his farm in Virginia, and he was flying out to LA to go visit SRI. And he stopped overnight in Vegas, and he had dinner with a friend, and then he claimed that he had been poisoned. He didn't know if it was food poisoning or what it was, but he got violently ill. He went back to his room and was throwing up, and stuff like that.
Oh my God.
And basically, he died that night. He passed away.
So you don't leave the CIA. And that's why when, I found it very interesting you meeting these gentlemen, and this guy right here. Who's this guy right here? Russell?
Yeah, that's Russell. Russell Targ is the guy who produced the documentary with me.
He looks like he's remote view. If remote viewing was a person, that's what it would look like.
Russell is legally blind. Right?
Really?
Yeah, he's got a resolution problem with his eyes, and he has a failure to be able to recognize faces, like it's a genetic thing. But he rode a motorcycle in the San Francisco area for 30 years. Because basically by psychic ability and memory,
What?
Yeah.
No way.
He can see, but he can't see well. But he'll tell you, I do a really good impersonation of a guy who can see, and it's true. I mean, I've spent enough time with him now to know this. But when Russell was a kid, he would do magic shows, and he was a magician. He was like a street performer. He'd do mental magic and stuff like that. And he would notice that he'd be doing his mental magic thing. And an image would pop into his mind about somebody living in a yellow house with a white picket fence, and he'd say that to this person, and they'd go, "Oh my God, you're brilliant. That's right." And so he realized that he was doing stuff that wasn't mental magic, And years later, he went on and he became a physicist. He was one of the inventors of the high-powered laser. So I mean, he's like a legit physicist, and as is Hal Puthoff, his partner, and he spent years researching psychic ability kind of just as a hobby, and then he went to Sylvania Laser Laboratories. He was working there, and he convinced his boss to start a parapsychology, psychic ability, ESP research program. Yeah. And he'd invented this little 4-choice machine that's like a random number generator that you can predict what number is going to come up next using psychic ability, according to him. Which is now, by the way, an iPhone app. You can get it on your iPhone for free.
You can guess what the number's going to be.
Yeah, it's this tool that he wound up inventing for NASA and at Sylvania.
That'd be a great way for the CIA to find, or anybody to find out who's psychic.
Maybe, yeah,
hey,
maybe.
This dude is nailing these numbers left and right.
That's it. Yeah. But his goal, I'll tell you though, Russell's goal. Russell left the program much earlier than everybody else, because he wanted to tell people about their own psychic abilities. So I believe that's really Russell's thing. But when Russell invented this thing, and they accidentally put out an ad in a newspaper saying we're looking for psychic subjects.
Yes.
And they weren't supposed to say that.
Yeah.
You know, like they were supposed to say something different.
Yeah.
The guy screwed up. And lo and behold, they get a call from Bobby Kennedy at the time. Bobby Kennedy. And who was, I guess he was the representative of whatever district or that this took place in, and he had gotten so many phone calls from like concerned citizens about this evil demonic thing that was going on at Sylvania Labs that he shut the whole thing down. He said if you don't shut this down, then GM, the parent company and everything, the government's not going to give you any more funding. So they had to shut it down. That was Russell's first experience in government. But then he went on. He met Hal, and they took his 4-choice, random number generator machine to a NASA conference, and he met Werner von Braun. Werner von Braun is the rocket guy, the ex-Nazi.
Nazi, whatever.
And,
nobody's perfect.
And really a little blemish on the record. But hey, the moon landing.
We were just in Huntsville, Alabama.
Yeah.
God bless you guys who came, and it wasn't a big turnout for our show. And it was one of the first that wasn't a big turnout.
Yeah.
We usually do pretty good numbers, and they were talking. One of the people came to the show. You go, you know where you're at, right? You're in Huntsville, Alabama, and this is where like von Braun, you couldn't say he was a Nazi until like the 80s. Like everyone was in full denial of like what he was a part of.
Yeah. Oh yeah. But they took full advantage of all of those guys. I mean,
the Nazis were into like psychic stuff as well, like testing like twins. If I burnt you, would your twin feel it?
They had a whole other side to what they were doing with the occult, and again, they were much more interested in, just like the Soviets. It's like the good side of the force and the dark side of the force. Like these guys were interested in like choking people and like causing heart attacks and stuff like that, right? But von Braun did very, very well on Russell's ESP tester, and he was so good at it, he brought it to the administrator of NASA, and he said, we should fund this. This is great. So that's how they got their first funding to get started. Was basically NASA provided money so that they could teach their astronauts to be more intuitive when something goes wrong. And they found that using this machine, over 200 astronauts took part, and that the vast majority of them were able to improve their scores over time, using this. So it's possible to get better. But I tried it, like when I first met Russell, he hands me his iPhone and he goes, "Here, you try it." And the pressure's on, right? I'm like taking this thing and I'm doing it. And I mean, I'm just like dismal. It's like I'm not getting anything right. And it's like literally like out of 25, I got like 5. It was really bad. And I was so embarrassed. I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, man, I didn't get it. And he goes, no. He says, it's okay. He says, you actually are using reverse psi, because it's impossible that you could have gotten that many wrong by chance.
I've always said that, dude.
Right,
if you're making like a parlay and you get none of them right, you should get some kind of award for that.
Right. It's like you can actually go to Vegas and be so psyched out about winning that you intentionally pick the wrong bet again and again.
It's happened all the time. Ask Bet DSI. It's happened to me a ton of time. Now, when you met these guys, what were they like? Were they... was there ever a darkness to this program that maybe they regretted, or were they just like, oh, I can finally tell my story. It's cool that, we can, because you mentioned that you had gone through, I believe it was you in the movie, had gone through and requested these documents. And finally you got them and you handed it to our friend. And he goes, finally I can talk about this.
Joseph Mengele?
No, the other guy. He had said, finally I could talk about this and show these without having to kill them after.
Right.
Obviously it was a tongue-in-cheek joke, but...
was there a darkness to this? These people were working in actual real intelligence operations where real actions were taken and people could have died. This was not like the pretend CIA or the pretend, Department of the Navy or whatever. This was real stuff. Actions were taken. But what people don't realize often is that actions are never taken in a void. I mean, maybe they are now. Like with our current, situation, maybe they are now but nobody just uses their gut and then bombs, a city or something. I mean, it's like, intelligence is built upon a lot of different things, and there's a lot of unreliable sources in intelligence. So this is one more source. So what would happen is they would basically say, okay, we think this is going to happen here, look here. And then that corresponds with a bunch of other information and gives them a better idea of what's actually going to happen. I asked that very same question to Hal Puthoff, who was the co-founder of this program. And I was in a quiet moment, and I said, do you ever regret doing this? Like, do you think maybe this could have been used wrongly? And he said, no, I don't. He said, and the reason is because wars are not started by intelligence. Wars are started out of ignorance. When you don't know what your enemy is going to do, you're much more likely to go after them.
Yes.
Like if you know what your enemy is going to do, there's usually another scenario besides conflict. And I thought that was a very interesting and profound way of looking at this. I do think that the potential is there to misuse this kind of stuff, but it's also not. But the potential for misusing your freaking cell phone,
everything is.
It's like, look, this whole conversation is being recorded right now.
Sure, we love you, CIA.
Yeah, go watch, Citizen 4 or whatever. It's like it's the tools that they have now are so far advanced to what they had back then.
And we don't even know what they. We know this for right now, and that's the 80s.
Right.
We don't know what they have in 2019.
Dude, let me tell you, I was talking to Hal, pretty much the same conversation, and I said, is there anything that you worked on that wasn't this, but that was really classified that you can now talk about? And he started his career. He was a laser physicist like Russell. They were partners. But before that, he was in naval intelligence in the reserves, and he was still a physicist. And he said, it's been declassified now. I can talk about this other thing. I was in charge of a program called Project Lightning for the government. He says, and our goal was by 1968 to develop a 1 gigahertz computer, a supercomputer. Now, as we know, the gigahertz computer came out in the 90s, maybe mid to late 90s, something. They hit a gigahertz, and I said, well, how far did you guys get? And he said, we got to we got to 0.8 something gigahertz by the time I left in 69 or 68 or something. And I said, how long did it take the rest of the world to get that computer? And he said about 30 years later.
Yeah, that's what they do. They slowly roll it out.
Right. And he said, so now he says, anytime I look at an electronic device or any other piece of technology, I go, okay, I have to extrapolate out about 30 years ahead. And that's what they actually have.
It's unbelievable. As you did this movie, what has been the response? Have you been contacted by any psychic people going, hey, I live this life.
Absolutely.
This ain't a movie. This ain't a lifestyle. This is my life.
Yeah, I've gotten correspondence with a lot of people who
are
claim,
any of them hot?
I don't know. Most of it's email, so it's digital. Probably not, but they're probably in their basement, and, very pasty. And,
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. But it's I get a lot of contact with people who claim to all kinds of things, but this is the issue in this whole sort of arena that we're in, is that everybody can talk. I mean, everybody, if you don't have the backup of it, then it doesn't, you can't prove anything. So it's interesting. It's like Ingo Swann did all kinds of really cool remote viewings, like the backside of the moon and bases on the moon.
Oh, so they can go beyond.
Oh, dude, they can go anywhere. Anywhere. See, your consciousness
this
exists.
Is incredible.
Your consciousness exists outside of time and space, right?
Yes.
So it's just as easy to see an event that's going to happen next week, or last week, or 100 years ago, or what's happening on Mars at this moment, or happening on some other system somewhere far away. They proved this again and again. 6 months before the first probe from Earth got to Jupiter, they tasked Ingo Swann on trying to find out what was going to be found when that probe got there, right? And he starts drawing rings around the planet, and he says, I see ice crystals, ice rings around Jupiter, and everybody's going, no, man, you're getting it wrong. And that's Saturn, right? That's it right there. Yeah, this is the excellent, man. Excellent. Thank you. Yeah, that's good job, my friend. This is the actual piece of paper. This is the actual piece of paper that he drew. And you see he draws this like ring around that. And everybody goes, oh, dude, he's screwing up. He's drawing Saturn. You know, like Saturn's the one where you can see that with the telescope. No, that's wrong. And then he goes, no, because he goes, what, you think, he says, I've been doing this my whole life. You think I don't know what Saturn looks like? He says, I know what Saturn looks like. This is Jupiter, you know? And so he sticks by his thing. And then 6 months later, the first images come back. There's ice crystals around Jupiter that nobody had ever seen with the telescope before. You know, so he got that right. So now you got to think, okay, so that means that we're not talking about terrestrial communication. We're not talking about something that already is in somebody's database. We're talking about anything, anywhere, in real time. You know, so the speed of light doesn't apply. You know, like all that stuff does not apply anymore. So, are we, like, for instance, with trying to contact extraterrestrial cultures, let's say,
which is what you want to do?
Yeah, like why are we using radio telescopes, you know, that take light years to do anything, when you probably have other cultures and civilizations out there somewhere in the universe? I mean, it just makes sense, right? Yeah. And they're going, dude, we've been sending you the vibes all this time, and you're not picking it up because you're trying to look it on your walkie-talkie. Ain't happening.
Do you, has this opened, it sounds like as a kid you were into the extra, I don't want to say paranormal, but the that there's more there.
Yeah, I mean, always. There. I mean, look, we're artists, right? I mean, it's like, I mean, if you're an artist, you have to be interested in the world around you, you know, and you have to question the world around you, right? And for me, I've always been the sort of person that likes to just think outside of the box and like think what else it could be possible. I mean, it's just part good writing, right? I mean, it's so yeah, I liked all this stuff, but I also found it a lot scarier when I was a kid. I don't find it scary now.
I find it so interesting.
Yeah. It's like, I mean, I think that the easy thing to do with this kind of subject matter is to leave this podcast and go, oh man, dude, my neighbor's gonna know everything I'm thinking. You know, like my boss is gonna know I'm late. You know, like the CIA spying on me. You know, like whatever. No. It's not that kind of ability, and any more than like I don't think that I just think that the world is a very mysterious place, but we're a lot more powerful within it than we give ourselves credit for. You know, and so that's the key takeaway that I've gotten through the wisdom of years. You know, like initially I was kind of like, oh man, you know, there's just so much scary stuff that I don't know. Am I going to catch cancer? Is ET going to abduct me? Like, what's going on? You know, and it's like, no, you know, we are very powerful beings if we are just aware, you know, of our surroundings, and if we use our own discernment. And there's so many people out there that just peddle all the negative stuff to scare the out of you.
They don't want you looking into this,
right?
You know?
Because it's like because then you start to realize, like, wait a minute, if that guy could do it, maybe I could do it.
Yeah.
You know, and but again, I want to go back and be cautious and say, it's about balance, because the people who could do this sort of thing were the most balanced people, the most sort of regular people. Like, you know, you don't need to go off and be real weird, you know, and then develop your psychic ability.
Right.
You know, like it's like the SRI never had a problem getting funding if they were talking to the guy in charge. Like if they were talking to the head of the CIA or the head of General Motors or whatever company they never had a problem. It was always the middle managers, you know, and the guys who were fear-based, who were like, oh no, people are going to laugh at me. They're going to think it's crazy. Yeah. You know, oh no, you know, no. It's the guys at the top are fucking already using this. You know, like that's how they're at the top, man.
Yes. I believe the world's gone.
You think any of these people used remote viewing after the CIA?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
dude.
You think so?
Dude,
sure?
So I'm working on a little mini doc on Uri Geller right now. Mm-hmm. Uri Geller was one of the people in that we interviewed for this. And he claims that I went to his house in England. At the time, he's moved now to Israel, but he used to live in this giant mansion next to George Clooney off the River Thames in England. And we went to his house. And I'm like, dude, this guy's an entertainer, but he's not like freaking Elton John. I mean, how does he afford this like amazing house? And he claims it's because he did oil prospecting.
Oh,
you know, he
shit.
did like prospecting for gold. You know, he said that he did it for like he did it for the president of Mexico at one point. You know, and then I think he had a thing with the president's wife, and then he had to leave or something. I don't know what happened there, but it's in his book. You can read it. You know, he claims that that's what he did. There's also people like Joe McMoneagle, the Army guy that I mentioned. That dude is very successful. Like, you know, he runs right now the Monroe Institute, which is really key in sort of studying meditation techniques and out-of-body experiences and stuff like that. But he claims that he is currently, and has been for a long time, working for corporations. He'll do stuff like product development. Like, you know, he'll like he said that about 10 years before ebooks, he told a book publisher that came to him looking at trends. He said, ditch paper. He said, it's going to all be a digital format in like the next decade. And the guy did it, and now they're doing very well.
Yeah.
You know, so it's you know, he says he's even sitting on the boards of some corporations and getting a monthly salary as a board member, just for occasionally doing some remote viewing. He says it takes him like a couple minutes, and he'll send him something. And
unbelievable.
Yeah. So it's like they'll go to him and say, all right, we're thinking about building our headquarters in this city. What do you think? You know, and or there's Lori Williams. Lori Williams is actually not one of the original remote viewers, but she runs a company called Intuitive Specialists, and she learned from the original Army guys. Like, she spent years studying with Lynn Buchanan, who was one of the originals. And she works for, you know, corporations. She teaches. She's a great teacher. And, you know, there's tons and tons of contemporary uses for this stuff that actually companies are already using. It even came out in the Sony hack that happened a couple of years ago, that they had hired like a remote viewer to look at trends and stuff like that.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. So,
if there's any remote viewers out there, tell me how my podcast is going to do.
1 million subscribers.
Oh, dude.
Easy.
From your lips to the aliens. Well, dude, this has been wonderful, Lance. I appreciate you coming out. Where can they find anything more about you? Where do you want our fans to go to look at?
Well, thirdeyespies.com is a good starting place, because from there you can get links to everywhere the film is. The film's available worldwide right now across every digital platform. So you can get it on Amazon, you can get it on iTunes. And if you get it on iTunes, actually, there's 8 different extras that come with the film that are really cool, that I cut, like basically just additional little mini movies out of the film. So, and then you can get it on Google Play, you know, Xbox, any cable network, etc. But if you go to thirdeyespies.com, there's also a link to get DVDs. If you want like Blu-ray or DVDs. I'm actually, anybody that's hearing this, I'm behind on getting the Blu-ray master out, because I'm doing it all myself.
Oh, man.
Freaking pain, man. I mean, the technology now is so antiquated that like I'm using stuff that like is just constantly crashing, and you know, like on my new fancy computer, it's hard, man. It's like, you know, but people still like DVDs. I do. You know, it's like, so
I love to collect those.
Yeah.
I mean, we're eventually going to, people like to own stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They like, not everything's meant to be digital, and people need stuff to do cocaine off of.
Right. And I just made the thing for Amazon where they just approved it. Well, pretty soon the DVD will also, and Blu-ray will be on Amazon as well. So you can go on there. But if and then on YouTube, there's a ton of extras. I'm starting to vlog more about this stuff, so there'll be new vlogs. And I have hundreds of hours of footage of this stuff. I mean, I spent so much time. So I will be slowly like leaking out more and more like excerpts and interviews. You know, I probably interviewed 60, 50 people, I don't even know, you know, over the course of this, and only a fraction of those people actually made it into the documentary. And there's so many amazing stories.
I love it, dude.
Yeah.
You're going down the fun. I think the world is so much more interesting.
Oh, it is.
And all my friends who like mock me, and they're wonderful people, but it's just like, why do you want to live in that world where everything is in this box?
Yeah, man.
Because you're safe. It's just like the world's so extraordinary.
It's like, it's a beautiful, mysterious world, and our own consciousness is right in the middle of it, and we ignore that. I mean, dude, I spent years, like you talk about Six String Samurai. You know, where have I been? You know, it's like, I made that movie. Where did I go? You know, it's like, well, I did some other things. I did some music videos. I did another movie that I didn't really like, but, you know, whatever. You know, but it was so much about my career and about like, oh man, I got to get ahead. I got to do this other thing. And it's like, I was ignoring myself. And finally, I just took the time out and I went, no. I want to know what I want to do. I'm tired of doing things that other people want me to do, and it's making me miserable. I was freaking miserable,
dude. Now you're talking,
bro.
I
was. I mean, I was fucking miserable. Like the last feature film I did, I almost not Six String, but another film, whatever. But it's like it was The Crow. I did a sequel to The Crow.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, I did a fucking sequel to The Crow. Yeah.
Oh my God, dude, you're royalty. I didn't know this, dude.
No, look, the people that I worked with on that film were awesome, but when you deal with a franchise like that, it is fucking hard.
A lot of suits.
Man. Yeah,
a lot of people couldn't even direct the movie if they want to.
It's hard.
Welcome to
I
comedy,
could write a
dude.
freaking book about that if I wanted to spend the time.
Welcome
I mean,
to
it's
comedy,
dude.
It's the most annoying thing ever, and it's just like. What we're doing, what you're doing with your movie is peer-to-peer.
Yeah.
You're getting rid of the people who have to have a note to justify a check.
Yeah. Dude, that's it. And now, like, I'm going to be all about YouTube. I just want to make it all about YouTube.
My
like,
next special might go right to YouTube.
Yeah, I've got like maybe almost 10,000 subscribers right now. Like I just want to start.
What's
like
your YouTube?
YouTube is youtube.com/Waking Universe TV.
I love it, dude.
Yeah, Waking Universe TV. Or just type in my name, it'll come up. But I want to do get rid of the middleman. You don't need it. It's like I've got all of the freaking gear. I've got the lights. I've got the intelligence to do it. It's like we don't need some dude sitting in a high rise going, all right, maybe, like whatever. Like, no, it's just about the elbow grease now, no matter who you are, really, and
I tell people
it's
that.
like, that's, and so I'm so much happier, just working with a small group of people and, doing my own thing and hopefully like other projects soon.
Don't chase checks, chase passion, dude.
Right.
And I tell people that when they're podcasts, because I'm trying to. I see people who are. We're gonna wrap it up. I see people who are stuck all the time, and I have this beautiful thing that I've been blessed that has grown to the point I don't need. Like I'm doing a very passionate project on television, but I don't need it anymore.
Right.
I'm doing it because the young guy wanted to do that stuff, and I'm blessed that they let me do it, and I'm not complaining about that. But I go on projects and I see people working for nothing.
Yeah.
And I give them the get your YouTube go, get your
Mm-hmm.
podcast go.
Yeah.
It's the underground railroad
It
to
is.
happiness and financial freedom.
And it's creativity. It's creativity because it's like if you actually have something to say, you can say it today, and then tomorrow everybody around the world could be watching it.
Yes.
That's it. It's like it's amazing when you combine that with all of this stuff.
Yeah.
Like which is like nothing compared to like what it used to be. Like I'm still fucking in debt over Six String Samurai, man. It's like I mean that movie, was so expensive because it's like 35 millimeter film and Panavision and like all this kind of stuff, and it's like the now. I got a little DSLR that like kicks ass.
Yeah.
Fucking iPhone.
Yeah,
You should
an
stuff
iPhone.
on
This is
iPhones.
my favorite tool, dude. It's another podcast, but like I went on a UFO summoning thing. And
What?
I took where you go out and you actually like meditate and like you can see UFOs and shit in the air. And I took about 5 of these and I hooked them up to night vision goggles. And then I had a hard drive recorder with like a wireless setup to like record shit.
There you go.
It was like badass, and it was like this was way better than using like expensive cameras.
Someone just recorded a whole comedy special. They bought like 5 iPhones, did it, edited it, returned the phones.
Yeah. Exactly.
What more do you want?
Yeah, exactly.
When you doing that UFO thing?
Oh man, hopefully really soon. I'm talking to somebody right now, and I'll probably be teaming up with somebody to do this, and because I know we have to wrap up, but like the whole point to my last film, to Third Eye Spies, the real point is that your consciousness is key.
Yes.
Your consciousness. We all exist in like the eye of the storm.
Right.
Like we're sitting in the center of the universe.
Right.
And the only thing that fucks us up and throws us out of it is our own fear. Like when we get scared or apprehensive or angry or whatever, which is all just fear, right? Then we spin out of that and we lose that. But when you're centered and you're calm and you're doing the thing that you love doing, you're in the center of your own universe, and that's where you got to be if you really want to be successful, right?
I love it, dude.
Yeah.
Please come on. I'm gonna go to that remote viewing thing anytime you do some. Hooking up with UFO stuff.
Yeah. Dude, come to a UFO summiting. We'll do it, man.
When? You just let me know, dude. I'm in.
My freaking distributor was talking to me on the phone, and he does this, and he will actually like do a meditation and then like see lights and stuff, right? And he goes, dude, I gotta go. There's like a light out here, and he like freaking filmed it and put it up on YouTube. It's like cause stuff just happens around him now.
Dude.
Yeah,
We'll
do it. We're done.
Lance, you're a bad man.
Yeah.
Thank you everybody for tuning in. It's Third Eye Spies. Go to thirdeye-spies.com. And I'm telling you, you're going to love this movie. It's mind-blowing. It's slick. It's interesting. It's got a lot of awesome information. And if you love this podcast, I guarantee you're going to love the movie. And, hey, man, I appreciate you guys. It's been a great week. This is dropping. Tomorrow we drop the Armenian Genocide episode that I'm going to do every year. And it's a great time to be alive, dude. Take what we said here tonight, apply it to your own life, find passion, and find a way to create art based on that passion, and you'll be a happier person.
Bingo.
Take care, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.